Hello and welcome to another tips, tricks, and tutorials video. This time we are covering a subject that you might think I don't know much about because of appearances, but I do, in fact, know a fair amount about this, and it is hair. As you can see, what we've got here, we're doing a nurney, and the nurney is going to be female presenting and will have some lovely long pink hair. I know this looks really, it is just a dark, sort of almost neon pink. This camera is not quite, that's pretty close to IRL, but it's more pink than the red that it appears in this camera. What I'm going to do is take this human-sized wig, and this is just an inexpensive, like Halloween costume style wig. I've used these before. They're very handy for doing like a long hairstyle on a puppet. And I'm going to show how at least I don't know that there's a canonical good way of doing this. This is just how I figured it out. Alter this to fit a puppet, and then how to attach this to the puppet. Two different parts of the process, both of which are very important. So let's have a look, I think, first of all. This may be a long one, FYI. Frankie, get used to it. I'm being asked in the chat if I am Canadian. I am in fact Canadian, and this is in the camera lens. Let's not do that. Yep, I am in fact Canadian, if you can't tell by the accent. I know I hide it well, but... Okay, so here we go. We are going to do a puppet wig. Now let's go to the wide cam here. And so here's the puppet that we're putting the wig on. Lovely pink nurney here. And here is the wig that we are going to do. Now the nice thing is, I'm going to stand up for this, so I will be out of frame for a bit here. The nice thing is, these actually look pretty good if you just kind of put them on. They're really not bad. You can do a lot. They're singing the Canadian national anthem in the chat. At the time of the shooting, it's July 4th, which is kind of ironic. But anyway, yeah, there's a long story there. As you can see, this actually looks kind of good, just like plopping it on the head, right? That's not bad. This was the first time I tried this, and I was like, you know what, there's something here. We could do something with this. Now, of course, the problem is that while this looks okay, if you just look around back here, there's clearly too much of this. There needs to be less of this. And just less of it is kind of what we need to make this a viable wig to go on a puppet. And that's not that difficult, thankfully, because of how wigs are constructed. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna go to the top cam here, and we're gonna get this out of camera frame. We will be coming back to this angle soon, but let's just move this aside so we can get a nice clear view of what we want to do is look at the inside of, now this is an inexpensive wig. I don't know, I've never worked with a non-inexpensive cheap costume wig, so I don't know if they're constructed differently, but these are basically, as you can see, there's a netting in here. And attached to that netting, in fact, I have some pieces of another wig that will be able to demonstrate this a little bit clearer. Here's a blue one that I had used for a different puppet, and this is just a little piece of it. And these are attached in what are called wefts. A weft, which is a very fun word, is basically like a strip of this artificial hair. And they're stitched on in these sort of long strips, as you can see. And you can see them here on the netting. And they're just kind of incorporated into the netting. And that's how they do it. And they just sort of build this up layer by layer. And I think the only real difference between a cheap wig and a not cheap wig is just the density of wefts, right? How many wefts do you have? The cheaper wigs have fewer wefts, and you can see the netting underneath a lot easier. The hair isn't as dense, it's more sparse, there's just less of it, right? But that's fine for our purposes. So in terms of the internal structure here, so that's what's going on here. We've got just like rows and rows and rows of wefts. They're all stitched together and attached onto this netting. And that's what these are, is the actual straps that if you were to put this on, no, I'm not going to put it on. And someone's going to ask. Although I always have wondered what I'd look like with pink hair. But you'd actually, like, this is part of the strap that you would, like hold this on your head with. But what we're interested in is just like a piece of this. Now, as you can see, this is the front right here, and this, you can see in the concentric circles here, we've got kind of different zones. We've got basically like 3 big pieces, right? So we've got a central piece and then 2 side panels. And then that central piece has at the kind of crown right here. This is the crown of the head, basically. And that's where these concentric circles start coming out. And what that does is it creates in the front here this sort of natural part, right? So here, right here, and you can see it really clearly. That's the, that's the crown, right? That's where the circles kind of converge right there. So what we want, what would be the most useful for us, is to kind of isolate just this piece, just this middle piece right here. And what I did with the other ones, and this ended up working quite well. First of all, when you cut these down, you really want more than you think you're going to need, and then you can trim it down from there, right? You can always make it smaller. You can't add, you can add wefts on, but let me tell you, you don't want to. So cut more than you think you're going to need. So I'm going to have a look at the puppet here. Let's go back to the wide cam and just get a sense, based on, now that we know what the internal structure of the wig is like, let's just see. So if we were to take just the middle piece, that seems pretty good. That'll get us to kind of there. And remember, this hair is like, because of the length of the hair, this is going to hang down past the actual width of the netting. The netting should just be like a small little cap. And that looks pretty good size-wise. We should be good if we just take that middle piece. And then it's a question of, like, we know we want the crown. We want that at the crown of the puppet head, so that's sort of the crescent point, the apex of the head. And Nurney, that's real easy, right? Because that's just like here. And that should, in theory, have the hair lay relatively naturally. I don't know why I said that like Kermit, but I did. Because you should say everything like Kermit, that's why. And that's pretty good. And obviously we want to, like, adjust the hairline depending on the character, depending on the design, that kind of thing. So I think what we're gonna do is first, and we also have to sort of figure out how long in the back we want it to, right? You may have to get, some skills in hair cutting here. You may need to bring out your inner stylist, because you could literally just do that. You can just style this hair once it's on. It's just a wig, right? So let's go to the top. What I'm gonna do is cut out this middle piece. You can see it in there, this middle piece right here, down to pretty far. I'm not going to go all the way down, but I'm going to go down further than I think I need, just so then we can start sort of working our way towards what we want. Now, the secret to cutting a wig is very much like cutting faux fur. You only want to cut the netting, not the stuff that is embedded in the netting, in this case, the hair. for obvious reasons. You don't want to like trim this hair off the netting. You want to just cut the netting. So this sometimes will go a little slow. Better to go slow and not mess up, right? So I'm going to start by cutting out the middle panel. And there are also these sort of side panels here. I'm going to leave those on for now. We may end up trimming those off, but I'm going to start. I know it's a little bit hard to see. Maybe we can zoom in. That's not too bad. The nice thing about this camera up here is it's got quite a good optical zoom, so you can actually zoom in and see stuff. I just had to try and keep it on camera, which is not super easy, but let's see. So I'm only putting the scissors under the netting part and just starting to trim very, very slowly the netting. And when we get to one of these junctures where there's like a weft, you can just cut across that, but again, make sure that you're only cutting the thing that it's attached onto and not the hair length. There we go. Down at the very end. And sometimes you are going to have to get in there and cut some pieces off. But you'll get a feel for it. I may speed up time in this part. But as we trim it, you can really get a sense of how it's put together, right? Like here's the front half, and here's where the wefts are all stitched down onto the netting. So you're cutting between the wefts. You don't want to cut across the weft. You want to leave the weft intact. Weft is a fun word. I like it a lot. I'm just going to say it from now on for everything. How's your weft? You wefting? The weft is good, right? Okay. Like I said, this is not a fast process. You gotta take this slow and careful. But that's worth it. You will occasionally get little pieces like this. If I've got this really off camera, I'm gonna have to edit around that. But that's okay. That's Frankie's job. Yeah. It's always my job. Okay. A couple more wefts we have to cut right there. Now that's probably far enough, but like I said, I'm gonna leave us some room to have mistakes. I should preface this by saying this is kind of a lazy way of doing it. The real way, as it were, I know a lot of doll makers will do this. You can actually buy wefts individually, just these strips, and you will like stitch on each weft individually. Obviously, that takes a lot of time, and that's something we do not currently have. It does look really good though when you do that. But now's where we gotta really be careful because we're cutting across the length, right? We're going across the the back of the hair. So we don't want to cut this at all. We want to leave the nice long hair to be long. But basically all we're doing is we're just sort of sizing this down to something that will fit a puppet. Okay, so now we go up the other side Make sure I keep it on the camera here. This is a good shot though. This is helpful. Why am I editorializing in the middle of a tutorial video? Kevin. I'll probably time lapse through this anyway. You're getting there. Almost there. Okay, so sometimes you'll have little bits that still want to hold on, but that's all right. So there we go. We've trimmed off. There's one side, and you can really, let me zoom out again here. I wish I had a remote for this thing. Here we go. You can really see the construction now, right? So there we go. We have trimmed off those side panels. And so all this is now the middle piece. So as you can see, it's this rectangular strip. This circle right here being the crown. Right, so it'll come in like that. And what we're going to decide now, we've got our width. This is going to be the width. And we just really have to decide on the length. How far down, how many rows of these wefts are we going to use? So we got to go back to the actual puppet and just put this in place and figure out how long we want it. So we know that if that goes on the crown of the head, there's the crown of the wig right there. This is how long the hair is going to be, which still seems a bit much. But more importantly, where the hairline, as in where does the netting begin? And that's a little, actually, you know what, that's fine. Maybe I'll put it a little further up, because his hair is so long. And that's one of the nice things. It's like, the hair being this long is quite nice and to be desired. But that's pretty good right there. So we've actually got the crown of the wig slightly past the crown point, but I don't really want to trim any of this length off. This is good, we like this, so let's not do that. But what we then have to decide is, you look at how long this is in the back, that's still pretty good, like that's not bad, but the actual netting is going past even the bottom of the neck of the puppet. That we don't want. So I'm only going to trim off like maybe, I don't know, it looks like 3 rows. 3 rows will probably get us to the right point, I think. So let's do that. That feels about right. And this is one of those things you just have to eyeball it and figure out what works for you and for your design. But it's nice to see it this way because you can really get a sense of how it's constructed, right? So we said 3. So I'm going 1, 2, 3. I'm going to leave the third. I'm not going to trim the third off. So we're really just taking 2 rows off. But again, we're playing it safe. If we want to take another one off, we can take another one off. Basically, I don't want the netting to go further than the neck of the puppet. There we go. Look at how nice that comes off, right? And here's the really nice thing is these, you can still use these for stuff. I can probably, like, between the blue and the pink chunks that I have left, I can make a whole new wig with that. So save all that stuff. It's always going to be handy. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually trim this up width-wise a little bit in the back. Because when you think about how hair actually lies, right, it kind of tapers, your hairline kind of tapers in the back. So we want to emulate that if we can, at least a little bit. Obviously with hair this long, it doesn't really matter, but it'll just look better if you do that. So let's do a little bit of that. Here we go. Okay, let's have a look at that on the puppet and see how it be. So again, we know we're putting the crown slightly past the crown of the head. It's all tilted. There we go. Okay, how are we doing? Looking a bit like a Ramon, and that's not a bad thing. See, this length is still real good. This is still really long. Where's the netting going to? The netting is going down to here, so it's just at the base of the neck, which still might be a little bit long. I'm going to take one more row off of this. I want to play it safe, but I think it will be in our best interest. I don't want it on the actual fabric of the neck. I want it at the base of the skull, right? You know, which is kind of how hair works. I'm given to understand. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna take one more row at the bottom here off. Very bouncy music. Okay, here we go. One more row is taken off. And when we get down to here, if you've just got like a loose netting edge, this you can actually trim back, because all we really want is the hair part, right? Just make sure you don't cut the stitches for the hair, but you can trim the netting back, which will help you in the attaching it part. There we go, just a little piece of, you wouldn't want this flapping around anyway, so there we go. Yeah, clean it up a little bit here too. Okay, let's see how that be. Well, I'm gonna want those. Why can't I? should know, I'm just bouncing back and forth between these two cameras. All right, puppet head is now stable. Unlike me, am I right? Okay, that's pretty good. That's good. Look at that. That's pretty nice. Oh, a good length in the back. I like that a lot. That's fantastic. Okay, and yeah, this comes down right to there. We could even go one more, I think, but let's see. Could we go one more? Could go two more, to be honest. This is really long. I'm gonna roll the dice, and if it's too short, which I really doubt, I could always just stitch another row on. It's definitely not gonna be too short. I'm gonna go one more row just to satisfy myself. This is where you just gotta embrace your in the moment artist. How does it feel at that moment, you know? Sometimes you gotta take a chance. Calculated risk. There we go. Semmelwefts. Do that in the Inspector Clouseau voice. All right, see, this is looking even closer to what you might expect size-wise, right? This is just sort of like, you can kind of get a sense just from this, how that's going to sit on the head. Okay, so let's see. Let me just drop my ruler. Try to go through one stream where you don't drop something. There we go. That's it. That's it. Right there. Perfect. That's good. And where's our netting? Right there. Oh yeah. That is absolutely perfect. Okay. So, now that we've got that, the next step, of course, is attaching this to the puppet head. How? We've got a couple of options. We talked a little bit about this before, but you could glue it. I would not advise that, particularly in this case, because you've got long hair. And with gluing it, particularly with something like long hair, you've got one shot, and that's it. If it goes wrong, you start again, and you've wasted all of that time and material. Probably don't want to do that. So stitching it on is really the best option, which is tedious. Because you are stitching fur onto fleece in this case. So let's see if we can get a good camera angle for that, because it is not fun, but sometimes necessary. In this case, necessary. So I'm gonna actually zoom out. Ooh, too close. There we go. A little bit here. Sorry for the shaky cam. I do want to make it so I can work as well as show this on the camera. Okay, that's not too bad. So this is a top down. So here's the crown of the head right here. And first thing we're going to do is put some pins to hold this in place. So actually I'm going to go to the wide cam just for that part. You can probably see it a little bit better what I'm doing. So I'm going to figure out where the actual hairline is going to lie, which I think will be kind of there. Sorry, I know I'm getting in the way of the camera, but I actually have to see this IRL, as it were. There we go. That's pretty good. So I'm just going to hold it there, and we'll pop a pin just right through the whole thing. And because of that, we now know our central location for the crown is right there. So I'm going to pop a pin in there too. Right through the middle. Again, it's a little bit actually dense in there. It's resisting the pin. There we go. I think that got it through. A little cranial surgery, no problem. So I don't want to put too many pins in just because we're going to have to take them out as we go. And that generally slows you down. But you want to sort of lie this onto the surface of the head. And get your pins in at major points like the corners. There we go. And this is where you can make some adjustments in terms of the hairline and things like that. Just figure out how you want this to sit. Okay. There we go. Looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. So I'm going to go in the back here. And I'm actually just going to do this by feel. And sort of see. I'm going to stitch this down about there. This is something you could sort of put the pins in as you go with this. You really, because we're going to start where the pins are in the front here. but for the sake of argument, let's put some in here. We may actually be moving these around a little bit as you go. It's going to sort of settle and find its own level. But yeah, no, that's perfect. That's right at the base of the skull. These pins could also easily pull out because they're just into fabric here, so they might just do that. So it's kind of pointless to put them in at this juncture, but we will anyway, because doing pointless things is what puppet building is all about, or something. More pins. And don't be afraid to, like, you know, shift around, you know, adapt in the moment, as it were. Now let's put some, at least one in the midpoint here, because as you can see, what's happening is it's kind of buckling, it's kind of folding up. Now that's fine. The hair will cover that up, but you do want this to sort of lay, almost like a flat pattern. You want to lay this down as flat as you can get it. If you have to do a couple of folds here or there, that should be fine, depending on the length of the hair, of course. Thankfully, long hair hides a lot of sins. So I think we're going to go with that. We're just going to start, because the long part here is actually stitching it. So let me, first of all, we're going to thread a needle. And I'll set up this shot. We'll see if we can get it in there. How good is that? That's not too bad. So what we're doing is we're pulling the hair back and we're exposing the netting underneath. I have to have this close enough to me that I can see it, but also far enough back so that the camera can see it, which is a bit of a challenge at this juncture. How's that? That's pretty good. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ladder stitching along this netting line. You can see here, you got to comb the hair back. You could even use like hair clips or berets or something to do, or sorry, barrettes in non-Canadian, to hold this hair in place, which is probably a smart thing to do. I just don't actually have any. It will surprise you to learn I don't have any hair clips. But we're going to be ladder stitching along this line where the netting is. So I'm going to get, as always when we're ladder stitching on the outside, curved needle. This is an upholstery needle. Very, very handy for doing this kind of thing. And some pink thread. And oh, this is a brand new spool of pink thread. First use. We will thread up our needle and then we will start stitching. And we will do that all the way around until it's done. Literally can easily take a couple of hours. And I'll show you why. You may be able to guess why. Just because the hair's in the way, so you constantly have to move the hair out of the way. This is the same whether you're doing it with a wig or whether you're doing it with like faux fur. Same situation. Okay, just threading the needle here. Hang it off. Okay, and we start. So I'm going to go into the fleece side first to get us started and tie it off just to give a nice solid anchor point. Right there, like that. And See, this is the time-consuming part. The hair is going to want to get all tangled up in the thread. And you just constantly have to brush it back, untangle it. But, so you could ladder stitch it. In this case, doing a whip stitch will be fine because this is all going to be hidden anyway, and that might be a slightly easier task for what we're doing. This edge is not going to be visible because the hair is going to lay over it, so it's okay to whip stitch this. And the whip stitch is stronger anyway, so it's a good choice for this. So anyway, that's it. That's really it. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop shooting the actual tutorial part of this. For right now, I'm going to go on through and finish this. And then I'll shoot a wrap-up, a reveal, at the very end. But this is it. I'm just going around the entire circumference, stitching this onto the fleece. As you can see, one stitch at a time. As I'm pulling the stitch through, I'm actually holding it in the opposite hand so the thread doesn't tangle, and we can also keep the hair out of it. But as you can see, every single stitch just takes time. But there we go. That's how you do it. So, let's go to this. So I'm going to go on through and finish this, and then I'll shoot a wrap-up reveal when it's all done. All right, one shirt change later, and here she is, all done. So I didn't end up stitching all the way around. It's because of how the wig kind of folded up and stuff. So there are some loose bits in the back, but that's okay. You'll never see those. The hair just sort of naturally falls in front of them, and it allows for a lot of extra movement here. So, you know, you could always take hair clips and things, and you could even tie this back, or there's lots of styling options with this, which is real nice. I gotta keep her in frame here. But this is real good because you can do, like lots of stuff you can do with Miss Piggy, It's hard to do with this camera, but you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, there she is, looking pretty good, I think. So here we are, one finished Nernie, ready to go. So thank you, as always, for another tips, tricks, and tutorials video. There will be more, so stay tuned to watch all the live streams. All the links are at operationpuppet.com, all that good stuff. I'm not going to attempt to do a voice, so we'll just see here. We'll wave goodbye. Here we are. Bye-bye.